My next guest is Bryan Zwemke. Bryan is the Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Innovation in Illinois with 23 years of experience teaching and leading in rural, suburban, and urban settings focused on student achievement and student engagement. His priorities focus on the core strategies of a guaranteed and viable curriculum, mental health, equity, and access for all students, supporting quality teams and personalized learning for students. Bryan completed his doctorate program for educational leadership at Aurora University, defending his dissertation, Building Social Capital Through Social Media, and is serving as an adjunct professor at Aurora University. As a veteran administrator, Bryan has developed a passion for the necessary change toward future ready education, an ecosystem dedicated to student growth, collaborative spaces and practices, and research supported techniques to long term success. Further, Bryan is co-facilitator for the Mastermind and sometimes blog contributor for Teach Better Team. Welcome to the podcast, Bryan.
Well, thank you so much for having me. How are you?
Great, great. Well, we could have connected through the Teach Better team. And I just came back from the Ohio conference. Unfortunately, was not able to meet up with you, but we'll talk a lot about kind of your work that I mentioned in the bio during this podcast recording. But I'd like to start off with this question I ask everybody at the beginning. Tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Yeah, I think it's a different trench each year. It's a different opportunity to serve. So right now my trench is different. I'm transitioning from moving from a building level leader as a principal for the last 13 years now to district office supporting as an assistant superintendent. And the one story that I always remember or mentorship along the way was principals and superintendents talking to me about, the further you move away or the further you move up in an organization, the further you move away from kids, and
Mm-hmm.
the further you move away from those trenches. And I'm kind of reminded of a story that I worked with a classroom teacher on years ago. And she came to my office. She was very upset with a situation in her classroom where some students had misbehaved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like looking back on a story that was like a little insignificant at the time when you looked at the mass kind of overall, ecosystem of the entire day. And she had
Mm-hmm.
some broken rulers, and she was upset. And I took the time and I solved the issue that she had. And when I got my first principal job, they're actually framed in my office right now, a set of broken rulers, and it just kind of reminds me like about being in the trenches, working with people, and then the small things for them, which may not seem so large in the overall pictures.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important that no matter where you are in an organization, I've been fortunate to serve in multiple roles in multiple districts, that everything is important to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that time with them and allowing their issue, be it small or large, and giving it that time and giving it the oxygen and supporting somebody, is a story that probably happened 15, 16 years ago that has still stuck with me. And it reminds me that wherever I am, whatever trench that I'm supporting is ultimately a way to always be able to help and support people and stop what I'm doing, and then ultimately take care of whoever needs are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important, both as a building leader and a district leader. Tell me a little bit about your move. You said this, you just started this school year as assistant superintendent, and a little bit about your background from AP to principal to your current position.
Yeah, so um, I taught for about a half a dozen years, and then I moved into administration, and kind of learned as I went, and started as a dean of students and moved into the role as an assistant principal. And I kind of took on a traditional role of dean to assistant principal and helped out with athletics for a while. um, then I really kind of got into the student services side of the world, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of the early RTI days. But always had that instructional mindset, and the curricular mindset. And I was fortunate enough to serve as a building principal in middle schools.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made the leap to serving as a principal at a high school, which was a really unique experience. It was, I wish I would have had a little bit non-COVID experience, just like I'm sure like everybody else has over the last 18 months to 3 years. Um, but it really has given me kind of that full picture. So now that
Mhm.
I serve in the role as an assistant superintendent for curriculum and learning, it's really given me that scope and that lens to recognize, all right, when I'm about to send an article to read, I remember
Mhm.
what that was like when I got it, and
Mhm.
understanding
Mhm.
that what did that day actually look like, and was I able at that time, would I have been able to read this, or what does my timeline look like on things? So right now I'm thinking about, and we'll continue to work towards this, is blended learning, and the district I'm working in has been a champion in blended learning for a long time, and at the high school level, and we're really trying to focus in on the learner at the middle level, and what
Mhm.
could we do through blended learning at the middle school level. That's probably something that we're going to be focused on for the remainder of this year. But understanding that that might take 2, 3, 4 days before I might get a response. And so
Mhm.
now I'm thinking, I'm planning now 3 weeks in advance, 3 months in advance, multi-years, versus as a building level leader. Sometimes
Mhm.
it was 3 minutes at a time,
Mhm.
the next 30 minutes, the next 3 days. And you didn't get a chance to always kind of complete that cycle. And so it's a different pace. It's challenging in its own right. Um, and I think that I'm surrounded by people who are just outstanding educators. They produce at a high level. I'm learning as I'm going, and
Mhm.
I'm fortunate to be a part of a good team.
Mhm. Mhm. Tell me a little bit about some of your goals in terms of still getting into the buildings. Your district, you said, had two middle schools and one high school. So, how do you see your support this year?
Yeah, I've been pretty intentional and will continue to be intentional about being in buildings.
Mhm.
Maybe rather than some conferences right now. I think it's important that I grow I still grow my professional learning network, of course,
Mhm.
in person and digitally, but also um, I need to know who staff are, and
Mhm.
I'd like them to know who I am as well too. So I started department showcases where it's quite simple. I just work through the department chairs and try to set up a time with some teachers that want to show off. They
Mhm.
want to talk about what they're doing in their class. It's something that they're proud of. I'm kind of branding it in the sense that I'll write them a little thank you note. We'll do some things on social media. They get a little
Mhm.
laptop sticker, but more than anything, it's an opportunity for me to see what people are proud of,
Mhm.
for me to be able to see the school environment with the students, and just kind of get out there and enjoy really what happens on a day-to-day basis. That learning is a destination, and
Mhm.
ultimately at the end of the day, what is their process, and how can we ultimately support it. So I couldn't think of really a better way of kind of systemically coming up with reasons to go into buildings and work with
Mhm.
teachers and see what they're proud of. And I have a number of them booked, and we'll have a number of department showcases moving forward. It's like a very cool show and tell. This is
Mhm.
what's going on, and there's no clipboard, and it's not an informal, and we're not looking at domains or anything along those lines. It's just an opportunity to show off and tell that story of what's happening in the classroom on a consistent basis.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, we often see student work being displayed, but actually giving the teachers an opportunity to, have some social media shout outs, or you'd be able to share with other people in their building what's going on. I mean, that's a great idea for teacher support, and especially now, like we're talking a lot about adult SEL and
Mhm.
teacher burnout, just really recognizing what they're doing in the classroom. Um,
I think it's just like anything, and I
mhm.
know social media is not for everything, not for everybody. So, I look to do some internal communication as well too. But
Mhm.
when you're building up that collective efficacy of a teacher, of a staff,
Mhm.
for them to be able to see, wow, this is what my peer does, that
Mhm.
might be something that I want to learn a little bit more about. Or taking teachers and giving them, the platform for them to get a little bit of a shout out. I think that's great for climate and culture.
So you told me in the pre-chat that this move maybe was something you'd had an eye on, but it wasn't necessarily something you'd anticipated, but you prepared for it kind of in your doctorate program for this move. So tell me kind of how that transition played out.
We had a great cohort for
Mhm,
for my doctorate. It was face to
mhm,
face, and I know that there's some blended models of that as well as
mhm,
fully online. But I really valued the face to face group with the 12 or 13 of us through our program. And I'll tell you, it was like the best professional development. The last 15 minutes or so usually were awful because I was with my
mhm,
kid, look at what was the next set of assignments due. But I loved it so much, and keep in contact. I know everybody's a text away. Um,
mhm,
we're checking on each other professionally and personally. It really became like kind of your third family behind your work family and your regular family.
mhm,
You had a cohort family. Um, and so I'm proud of everybody that I worked with and where they're going in their careers. I'm actually teaching at the same institution that I went and teaching a curriculum instruction class and really enjoying that as well too. And plan to continue on doing that in the future. Um, so yeah, as I continued that program, it the more you learn, the more people you meet, the more doors that open for you. And you start thinking about, well, I have X amount of years left in my career, or I want to accomplish this or this, or where does my philosophy on education match up with?
mhm,
And then you start really thinking, very early in your career, you when you're taking on that first teaching job, you're taking on that first teaching job
mhm,
and take it. And
mhm,
at least that was for me. And then as I got a little bit further into my career, you know, I could be more selective, not with the jobs that were offered, but with the jobs that I was interested in applying for. And I think
mhm,
that's key separator is if you just blanket the market completely and say, I'm applying for everything. Well,
mhm, mhm,
why? And
mhm,
is it because this is where the natural step is, or this is really where your passion is fueled? And I find myself in a situation right now where I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting stretched.
mhm, mhm,
I'm learning to support through uh, um, building level leaders and principals rather than
mhm,
being there directly at the ground level. It is a great experience. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm absolutely getting stretched. Um, I've read more. I've attended more webinars in the
mhm,
last, 3 to 5 months than I have in quite some time. Because the day-to-day operations are they're just different, and so it is that kind of cohort feeling, and I'm very fortunate to work with some great members of this team, and then folks that I've kept in contact with, where we can still lean on each other. It's been great.
mhm, mhm. And that's in the same district that you were a principal, correct?
No, no,
Okay,
new role,
okay.
new district, new title, new everything.
So you've mentioned a little bit about your work as an adjunct at Aurora University. And how do you use the topic of your dissertation, building social capital through social media, kind of in your curriculum instruction and assessment class?
Yeah, one of the things that I asked them to do, and it used to be something that I'd asked my department chairs and assistant principals to do as well, is just really maintaining a digital footprint.
Hmm, hmm,
Um, even however you describe the best schools, whether
hmm,
that's academic or college and career, or by these reports that are published. What I learned through my dissertation is I studied the highest performing um, high schools in the state, um, really based on where they fell as exemplary schools, and then where they fell on a state survey on climate and culture. So I had the kind of the best of the best of the best. And they had great, great social media footprint. Frequency was really high. But typically speaking, you find out from schools when school is and when school's not. Today is such and such day. We don't have school. Parent teacher conferences are coming up. That's the stuff that goes on the fridge. And then you find out information kind of about who's winning. Congratulations to the cross country team, or the volleyball team did this, or we're putting a food drive together. So it's kind of think the sports programs, and then also like a service project, and that's about it. And I think when you really take a deep dive, even the better schools in communication kind of miss that human interest story. They miss sharing about what's happening on a day-to-day basis in the classroom. Because when kids come home and they say to their parents, their parents say, well, what did you do in school today? They kind of say, well, nothing. What'd you do? Nothing. Do you have any homework? I already did it. Okay, have a good day. And all of a sudden from 8 to 3 it's just washed away. And I think as building level leaders, as curriculum leaders, as superintendents, everybody throughout the entire system needs to help our public understand what's happening in our classroom, because it's so vastly different than what they experienced as a student 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, so on and so forth. And you're talking, our kids are in engineering academies, and they can take blended classes and online classes, and it's so different than when I was in high school, or even when the parents were in high school. But how do they know that? And it's not the end all be all that it goes through social media, using print media, getting out and having a community breakfast, being connected to your community, bringing folks in. It's so critical that people in the community, families, understand what's happening in the classroom. Because if they don't understand what's happening in the classroom, they're disconnected, and there's a lack of engagement. Or the real downside is they create their own narrative. And I trust our teachers. I love our teachers, and all that support them. And I think it's really critical that we help tell the story of what's happening in an 8th grade math class, or what's happening in 6th grade PE, or what's happening, in a Spanish class at the high school.
And how have you maybe helped with these students who are in that cohort, and the students that you teach, support them to maybe kind of put the word out there more, either through social media or making some changes to their website?
Yeah, so one thing that we did was a little bit of an audit. We created a class hashtag, that where we would post. We took a little bit of an audit. We used a framework that I developed through a survey that the state of Illinois gives. So you're looking at kind of academic achievement. You're looking at a supportive environment. You're looking at a number of different thought processes in terms of, boy, oh boy, we post so much about track, yet we have never said a word about the students in our EL program. Or, wow, we spent a lot of time talking about SAT, but we have never said a word about suicide prevention, whatever the case may be. And so by just kind of taking a dive into your own digital footprint, or what is sent out in newsletter, or what, because every place is a little bit different on how they do it. I think the trap sometimes related to social media still, and even after all these years, there's not a lot of lukewarm feelings on social media by educators. They're either in, or they're kind of like, I don't like this. And I always try to kind of remember, and I'm reminded of this sometimes when I get a little soured by it. You control your feed. And you see something that is not what you need, mute it, block it. if you find yourself, kind of going down a negative trap, you're, the device doesn't control you, you control the device. You control your feed and your algorithm. It'll relearn you real fast. So I think first and foremost, we try to get past through those fears, um,
Mhm.
related to social media, and keep bringing it back to what is the curriculum instruction that you're trying to um, have our kids focus on and learn those transferable skills, from grade level to grade level. Like what ultimately are we trying to accomplish, and kind of keep going back to telling that story. And that story can be, through a portrait of a graduate, or that story can be through, a simple post about National Honor Society, or that post can be,
Mhm.
something about, having, breakfast with buddies, or whatever the case may be, but not missing an opportunity to tell that story. And then I think also, um, you know, creating authentic opportunities for two-way dialogue, not just pushing it out, but then, responding back to folks, and, sometimes picking up the phone and calling, and, talking to them about, what it is that they're seeing, using surveys. In my mind, telling that story, and being really, really good, about staying kind of focused on your strategic plan and what you're trying to accomplish, and then creating that system around it to say, okay, what have we talked about and what have we not talked about?
Mhm. 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 Yeah, it should definitely go into the strategic plan for the school year and have some type of committee. I've been at schools where they do have Twitter and Facebook, Instagram presence, but like you said, a lot of it's about the sporting events,
Sure.
or if they have an open house, right? And
Right.
there are a lot of things happening at the school that get ignored for families that are shopping for where to send their kids, for potential staff members. There are a lot of websites that are outdated or
Yeah.
don't really have correct information for staff for the school year a lot of the time, and it's really, like you said, looking at your digital footprint as a community. So,
Yeah. But I think it's a great retention and recruitment tool,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
to storytell. And again, it's not just social media, it's really anything in terms of a Web 2.0 tool. It's, maybe your school district uses a Remind app, or,
mhm,
their website is, like you're mentioning, current and clean. Um, and it shares, the information that's needed. Um, but, at the end of the day, you're competing against a lot of other information, um, pushing things out, during the 2:30 pickup, when all the parents are sitting there. It's a good time to push out information,
mhm,
pushing out,
mhm,
information on a Friday afternoon. um, you look at the metrics on that, and it sits, and you don't get the result. So, um, I've tried many different ways to try to get out as much information as possible, and you just have to authentically listen back to what's coming back. And somebody says, you know what, I just going back as a building principal, you know what, um, it would be better if we got this, Monday morning, so we
mhm,
understood what was coming up this week. Okay, great for the
mhm,
feedback. Grateful for the feedback. So we started doing it. So,
mhm,
every place is a little bit different. Every ecosystem is a little bit different on what they like and what they appreciate. And I think, at the end of the day, is you should have enough content when kids are in there, 7 to 8 periods a day, for 5 days a week, for multiple months throughout the school year. There's plenty of information out
mhm,
there,
mhm, mhm,
to tell. And I think, one other piece I would add is, not only is it, let's make sure that we're talking about the curriculum. Words are great, pictures are better,
mhm,
video wins the day. And,
mhm, mhm,
if you could show somebody the excitement, or what engagement looks like, it's a game changer.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, there's so much in that topic to explore, and um, it's really like you can't go back and just have a plain website that's never updated or rarely updated. Like you said, it's just showing your school to the public is so important these days. So you also spend some time coaching administrators, as I mentioned in your bio, You facilitate the admin mastermind with Teach Better Team. So, what got you into wanting to coach administrators, and how do you kind of help them move from that maybe assistant principal to principal?
Yeah, you make it sound fancy, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, that organization has been very kind to me. Um, I've also had some really good mentors who have really taken the time with me and asked me the kind of what I wanted to do in my career, that I still keep in contact with, and can get together for a coffee or shoot a text to whenever. Um, I always found like the best supervisors that I worked with really never quite said do this or do that, but they were excellent thought partners. And what I try to do with any administrators, and this just that happens to be weekly digitally, um, is really listen. Like, what is it that they're trying to solve? Um, or are they even trying to solve something at all? Do they need to vent? Do they need to talk? Do they need to spitball some ideas? So,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to be a really, really good listener, which isn't always easy because I'm also then thinking along with them, like, okay, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, and you could fall into that trap of not being aware of what it is that they need. But to me, it's one area where um, I take some pride in you know, assistant principals or deans or teachers that have moved up throughout organizations, whether I'm still in them or not. People reaching out, hey, I'm looking at this position, or hey, can you give me some advice and write a letter of recommendation, or is this really how this job really is, and just all of those types of things, and then just checking in with people, those people that you worked with along the way as teachers or instructional coaches or admin, you spend a lot of time with, and when either you move on or they move on, you still have a special interest in how people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
um, and you want to make sure that they're successful, and then you have to take the opportunity to try to find the next person that you can help learn and grow,
Mm-hmm.
because people have done that for me throughout 20 22 23 years, and I'll need that until I retire, and
Yeah.
then and then I'm going to continue to do that for folks as long as they let me talk education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked about it's like the pieces that are moving on the chessboard, right? Kind of helping people find their place.
Yeah,
There's a lot of come and go throughout the years, but like people that are moving up to admin or different positions in admin, like where is their best fit? And I
yeah.
think the best admin have some type of a coach that they're able, like you said, to talk through some issues with, or just vent, uh, because not having that leads to burnout.
Well, when you think about are you a sports fan? What's your sport?
I'm really not that much of a sports fan, but I like watching like Winter Olympic sports.
Okay, so what's your Winter Olympic sport? Skiing. Okay. Can you think of a skier's name?
Lindsey Vaughn comes to mind
Okay.
first.
All right. Recently retired. Lindsey Vaughn, great skier, had a coach. She's one of the best skiers in the entire world. If anybody doesn't need a coach, it's Lindsey Vaughn. Every musician gets lessons at some point. They are
Mm-hmm.
coached. But yet in education, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we think like, well, we don't need to be coached. We're an administrator, we're a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You need coaching. Everybody needs coaching. We all need to reflect on practices, on what we do. Every single successful adult who is an athlete or an actor, they have coaches. We should too. And I think it's a part of the profession that is lacking. We have a great set of coaches here. I want to continue to see them grow and reach out to even more and more people. But administrators need coaches. This is a team sport, not an
Mhm.
individual sport. Um, but the more people we work with and the more coaching we have, it helps us. It helps us grow. And we can get kind of some a little bit of advice back, and it's usually nice, like, oh, you did a good job there. But if you're kind and you get that kind of advice, you're really like actually giving somebody some critical feedback as well too. And I think sometimes people will take the nice route rather than the kind route. And the more like somebody can say, hey, Brian, or hey, Dana, I think you're doing a really good job here. Here's where I can see you grow. That honest critical feedback is
Mhm.
so important and intentional, um, to do. And I think the great leaders take the time to do that, and then can also take the feedback back as well too. But um, yeah, the theme, we got to be coached, all of us. I don't think that there should be an exception to that. And I know that we have incredible educators, and I love all the places that I've worked and have met teachers that have been unbelievable. Let them get coached and then turn around and have them do some coaching as well too. I think it's a missing
Mhm.
part of it. This is a very individualized profession from time to time, and I know we've done some things with professional learning communities and created interdependence. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it's what I'm doing with my kids, and I think the people that are doing better, and you talk about mental health and capacity and their own bandwidth, are opening themselves up for the support and the coaching that other folks are getting right now.
Yeah, it's so important. There are so many teachers. I mean, there's more and more people getting that support, but like like you said, so many people that are working on their own island, whether they're in the classroom or an administrator. And yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's going to lead to burnout, and that's why there's a lot of attrition. So definitely seek out support through professional learning networks or your district, or you know, Teach Better Team is a great place as well. Well,
You bet.
we've talked a lot about just your move to your current position, your teaching, some of your doctoral work. Out of everything we talked about on the podcast today, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
I think at the end of the day, it's important that you stay very, very active in your story, uh,
Mhm.
and try to really understand that your story is about students. Um, we're here for kids. We're here to support teachers, and it's kind of their journey along the way.
Mhm.
So I think understanding that narrative, and being able to share that narrative is really important. Um, and trying to make sure that you're doing it from the perspective of a student, a teacher, a parent, a board member, a community member, so on and so forth, and taking the time with people and really understanding at the end of the day, this is a relational industry. I know we want to build
Mhm.
systems to support them, and we should, but we need to always remember that this is a relational industry, and it's fantastic. It's been my life's work of being an educator, and I'm blessed every day that I get to do it and make a little bit of a difference. So, um, that's what I hope folks can take from this, and reach out if they need anything, because I'll reach out to them first if I haven't already.
Well, in that vein, where can people find you online to connect with you?
Yeah, certainly message through Twitter at Bryan Zwemke, Instagram the same way. I'm on LinkedIn as well too. So happy to just have a virtual cup of coffee or a physical one if we're close, and talk shop and think about all the good things we have going on. This is a beautiful profession that gets to support all the other ones that come from it, and we have a gift every single day that we get to line up and support teachers and support students.
It's been a pleasure having you on the Out of the Trenches podcast today and hearing your words of wisdom and how you support and like to give back from those you've learned from as well. Have a great rest of your evening.
Okay. Yeah,